Hi everyone! As always, if you would like to skip to my reasoning as to why I believe no one would be able to survive the Final Destination series, then you can skip to this timestamp right here. Otherwise, I'm going to get into a bit of the background. It's going to be really short, so I recommend sticking around, but again, as always, you can skip to right here. Hi everyone, I hope you've been having a good week so far. As for the background, because this video is simply me trying to tell you based on the information we are given from the Final Destination series as to why I believe the average person would not be able to survive the Final Destination series. There are no rules or parameters, but I will be using the rules established in all the Final Destination movies, whether it is spoken or something that our group of people who are trying to survive finds out. But these are the known rules within the series, and I will tell you them here. They do kind of get repetitive-ish and when I'm giving my reasoning as to why you can't survive, because surprise some of the rules are the reason as to why I believe no one would be able to survive the Final Destination series. So simply going through the rules, number one, the first thing we ever learn within the Final Destination series is that death comes for anybody who tries to cheat death. That means in this Final Destination universe, if you were supposed to die a certain way at a certain time and you do not die that way, death will be coming for you automatically. Next, we learn intervening in someone else's death skips their death. So let's say, for example, one of our characters decides to intervene and stop another character from dying in the way that death was trying to kill them because they didn't die in the way death originally wanted them to die. Then that person is skipped, and the next person who was supposed to die in death's original plan is death's next target. And this cycle will repeat until everyone that death is going after is dead. On top of this rule, we find out in the series that you cannot die until death wants you to die. So if you are one person, let's say there's 5 people in line and you're number 4, you cannot die before that 4th spot. Even if you try to, death will not allow it because you are not the next person in line. You have to wait until it is your turn to be able to die. Next thing we learn in the series is that you can actually end up extending your life if you are willing to take the life of another person. Basically, you get the rest of their remaining life if you take their life. The last rule I have is one that is introduced to us by the character named Bloodworth. He is very relevant and practically one of the only reoccurring characters in the series. And one thing he tells our group is that new life defeats death. Now, as to what he meant by this, I will kind of get into it into my reasoning as to why you won't be able to beat death. But yeah, those are all the rules kind of established throughout the entire Final Destination series. And now this is your spoiler warning. I will not be going into great depth into all of the stories we follow within the Final Destination series, but I will be using points and things that happen within each story to justify as to why I believe in these universes you wouldn't be able to defeat death. So if you haven't seen the movies or it's been a while since you've seen the movies, I'd recommend going watching them before you come and watch this video. But otherwise, let's get into it. So the first reason as to why none of us would be able to survive the Final Destination universe is similar to the first rule, which is you cannot defeat death's design. If death has planned for you to die on flight 180 and you decide to get off that plane escaping the way death has decided you should die, you are not safe, you are not free, you did not even actually escape. Now you are on death's list, and death always wants to right its wrong. So regardless of what you do for the rest of your life, however long it is, death will be coming for you in very strange, very unorthodox ways that honestly most of the time, if they were actually real, would be labeled as freak accidents. The longest we've actually seen a character survive or evade death is 55 years, and that is our character, our grandmother Iris in Final Destination's Bloodlines. But even then, even within those 55 years of surviving, eventually death got around to taking her out. And I would argue that even though she survived 55 years, it wasn't a peaceful 55 years of survival. It was a 55 years filled with trying to calculate how death would come for her and kill her, safety proofing everything she did in her life, and basically overall becoming a recluse. And this takes me into my second reason. Even if you are proactive in evading death, kind of like our character Clear from the first movie or Iris from Final Destination Bloodlines, this proactiveness eventually honestly turns into paranoia. There's no way for it not to, and that paranoia inevitably makes you slip up. As we see with Clear, she's checked herself into a mental institution since the last time we saw her within the first movie. She did this as a way to protect herself from Death's design. It was very hard for Death to get to her in a white padded room. Not completely impossible, just very difficult, but eventually she does inevitably leave the room to help other survivors, that being ones like Kimberly and Officer Burke, but eventually, again, through her slip up of even trying to help the next group we see in Final Destination 2, Death does come for her and get her. And I would also argue that hers is less intentional than Iris, the grandmother in Final Destination Bloodlines, because the grandmother predicted how she would die if she stepped out of the house, versus Clear did not see it coming at all. But again, Death eventually came and claimed them both. Next, you might think that being the one having the visions is going to help you stay proactive in evading death, but as we see in the series, oftentimes the person who is having the visions is the main person trying to help everyone else survive. Now, while this might be a positive in the beginning, because if you are, let's say again, number 4 in line and you are trying to keep number 2 and 3 alive so that death cannot come for you, as we see in Bloodlines especially, this method does not always work, because a point I will also emphasize later is that when you mess with death trying to reclaim somebody who was supposed to die in the first place, that puts a target on your back and now death is coming for you. For example, in Bloodlines, Death tries to kill them both at the same exact time. Even though Stephanie was next in line and Charlie was after her, Death went after both of them at the same time. Another thing is even though you have premonitions, this is not a surefire way to make sure that you can escape death. And we see this at the end of Final Destination 3. Wendy ends up running into Julie and Kevin on a train, and she gets this premonition of the train crashing, but she gets this premonition within seconds of the actual events starting to happen. And so even though she tries to prevent Death's design, it was still too late and we hear the train crash at the end of the movie. And going back to one of our main rules that I plan on expanding on a bit later, that being that new life defeats death, this can be taken two different ways, and it actually is taken two different ways in Final Destination 2. The first way our characters try to create new life to defeat death is by trying to ensure that one of the characters, Isabella Hudson, has her baby, but we later find out that she was not even supposed to die in the original car crash. So our characters within Final Destination 2 aren't able to create new life and defeat death that way. But we do actually see this happen in Final Destination Bloodlines. Two generations, that being Iris, her kids, and her grandkids, end up being born after she evaded her death back in 1969. So you would think if you can defeat death by giving birth, by bringing new life into the world, then all these kids, that being her kids and her grandkids, would be safe. But no. In fact, those people just simply get added to death's list. And again, that's just the entire plot of Final Destination's Bloodlines. But this actually takes us into the next interpretation of new life defeats death. And this is actually the only way anyone has ever truly survived the series. When Kimberly finds out that the baby that Isabella has was never meant to die in the first place, she then decides to drown herself, stopping her heart, and she gets resuscitated at the hospital. So instead of creating new life through the baby, stopping her heart and restarting it created a new life for her and Burke. So therefore they were no longer on death's list. But the reason I put it on this list is because this is not a foolproof way to make sure that you do not die because of death. And we see this again in Final Destination Bloodlines. Eric, one of the grandchildren of Iris, tries to help his brother Bobby survive death by inducing an allergy attack at the hospital. The reason as to why Eric is not on death's list is because technically he is not related by blood to the other members of his family, that being his father, who is Iris's son, so death isn't coming for him. But in an effort to basically kill Bobby and bring him back, allowing him to evade Death's design, because he intervened in that way, Death ended up coming for him and killing him before he even came and killed Bobby. So even though this plan worked for Kimberly and Burke, one thing that is proven to us through Final Destination Bloodlines is that even if somebody who is not originally on Death's list, if they intervene in trying to save someone else who is on Death's list, Death will make sure that they get the person they're going after, even if they have to go through someone else, the person who is helping you, to get it. So yes, in theory, while you might be able to pull a Kimberly, there is no guarantee that the person you're trusting to bring you back is going to still be alive to bring you back, because death might come for them as well. And the last reason as to why I don't believe anyone, the average person, would survive the Final Destination series actually ties into one of the rules, that being that if you kill someone, you take the rest of their life. And again, like the last reason I talked about, this is not foolproof at all. And we actually see this in Final Destination 5. Nathan actually ends up killing one of his coworkers named Roy, so he gains the rest of Roy's life. But Roy ended up having a terminal condition, so killing Roy only bought Nathan an extra 2 weeks. So again, it's not really foolproof. I mean, I guess you can go out and try to sacrifice a baby if you want to be that evil, but there still is no guarantee that that's going to grant you 70 years. It could grant you 2 days, because as per the lesson all the characters learn throughout the entire series, you truly cannot beat Death's design, no matter how you try. So those are all my reasons as to why I believe none of us would be able to survive the Final Destination series or universe. If you have any more reasons as to why you think no one would survive, I'd love to hear them in the comment section. This was a new style of video I was trying, so if you like it, please leave a like, and well, subscribe if you want to see more of me. I hope you have a good weekend, weekday, weeknight, and bye!